Hey there, beautiful Texans. Welcome to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, I wasn't planning on starting the show with this, but Donald Trump got up and started having a press conference at about 1 o'clock our time. It's still going. I was recording it earlier, and he spoke for a long time, and then he turned it over to questions. Let's see. It was... Let me highlight this and look. Yeah, so he gave out, that's not very long. He gave like a little 10-minute intro speech, and it's been taking questions ever since then. And so he's been taking questions since about, 50 minutes? Yeah, I'm at 42 minutes. Well, no, I had to turn that recording off because the show was starting. So for about 45 minutes here, he's been taking questions. Now, the press is somewhat adversarial, but there's a couple of decent people in there. There's a few people he calls on, and it's the same question you would ask if you would ask Nancy Pelosi or Kamala Harris herself to ask the question. But let's go to this, because this is still live here. I've got it over here if you don't mind me pulling it up on the... Okay, so the lady's asking the question. Here he goes.
Federal Reserve. Right. Well, look, the Federal Reserve is a very interesting thing, and it's sort of gotten it wrong a lot. And he's tending to be a little bit late on things. He gets a little bit too early and a little bit too late. And, that's very largely it's a gut feeling. I believe it's really a gut feeling. And I used to have it out with him. I had it out with him a couple of times very strongly. I fought him very hard. And
all right, that's all I wanted you to hear. Now listen to what he's talking about. He's talking about nuance of Federal Reserve interest rate policy. This is the kind of stuff that people were wanting Joe Biden to do all year to prove that all the talk about him being in mental decline was unfounded criticism. The criticism of Joe Biden didn't necessarily dissipate into the ether. It's almost as if the crown was passed to Kamala, because now Kamala, not renowned for being the most praised public speaker, there's a criticism that's bubbling up about her not answering questions like this from the media. How would Kamala Harris sound if she was asked specific questions over an hour-long period, unscripted, from a hostile media, over just really politically nuanced, detailed, in-depth stuff? Would she sound this good? I'm not even saying he sounds good. I'm saying, would she sound as good as him? Why isn't she doing it? Because really all she would have to do is do this once or twice, and it would kind of prove that criticism needs to go away. She's a great public speaker and yada, yada, yada. But here he is. Now it's been over an hour. Another interesting thing about this that I think is kind of important, MSNBC just now cut into it. I have it up on two screens, Fox News on the left, MSNBC on the right. MSNBC actually went to Trump live for an entire hour. I didn't see him take a commercial or anything. MSNBC didn't used to do that. In fact, MSNBC did that in 2015, and in 2016, they stopped doing that. They wanted to control what their viewers saw. They didn't want certain parts of his message to get out. Now, they claimed it was just because, the truth is our ultimate backstop, and we can't responsibly play these things if it's possible that they're not all the way true. But they actually ran with this for an hour. MSNBC viewers got to see this for an hour. That's dangerous. They can't be doing that. But Trump still taking questions. It's been over an hour now.
It didn't hit that. I got very lucky.
I was talking about his ear.
Just hit the lobe, as they call it.
Is there a scar?
Yeah, a little bit. Not much. On top. A little bit.
All right, then that's the immigration question. So this is good stuff. This is what I'm talking about. This is history happening right in front of your face. Let's bring in my first guest, returning to the show, Connor Vassell. Sorry to get to you so late. It's just we had breaking news happening in front of our face, and Trump answering questions from the media is exactly what Kamala needs to be doing right now. Would you agree, Connor?
Great to be back, sir. Yeah, I think so. I mean, she's always telling the media and everyone else how Trump is scared. He's running away from debating her. Well, let's see her put that money to where her mouth is and actually, meet the press and actually face them as any other politician or, seasoned leader would do. And in her case, if she wants to dispel all those rumors, she will actually go and answer these questions. But a part of me is thinking that she's not going to do that.
Well, see, when you say dispel all those rumors, the problem is there's not all those rumors. We're the only ones saying that. They're not clamoring to hear a Kamala Harris press conference on CNN or MSNBC or ABC or CBS or NBC. This is just something you and I are pointing out. However, that was something Trump was pointing out at the beginning of his press conference and press availability here. And, for the first time, I think a lot of MSNBC viewers were hearing that criticism like, yeah, why haven't we heard from her? She's been the presumed candidate for almost a month now. What has it been, like 19 days?
Yeah, something like that. But I'd like to just add something to that. So, the common everyday American who knows even just one bit or an iota of what's happening in current politics, especially with this presidential election, knows that Kamala Harris is not up to the task and she is unprepared when it comes to even answering the most basic questions. Now, the reason why those rumors haven't been up and about as much as we think they should be is because of the manufactured media. We have legacy media. You have the MSNBC. You just said it right now, sir, how they just showed an hour long of Trump speaking. That's unprecedented for them. He's a danger with all that misinformation. So, the narrative is cracking, but only because they can't hide it any longer, I think.
Well, they can hide it pretty good. They managed to hide Joe Biden's dementia for almost 6 straight years there.
What dementia?
Excellent point, sir. Very quick. Connor gets 8 points. Garrett on the scoreboard. Connor, 8. There you go.
Wonderful.
You're on the board. So I think the Tim Walz pick is following the first rule of politics, sort of the Hippocratic oath of politics. First, do no harm. He doesn't seem to be hurting Kamala Harris. Is he winning new people to the cause?
Well, I think she's going with what's familiar, right? I mean, she's a leftist. She's one of those woke progressives. One of those clips that are running around right now shows her saying that we need to be woke. It doesn't matter if you're more woke or the wokest or woker. You just need to be woke. So her pick is not very surprising considering his track record, politically speaking. But I don't think this is going to really gain her any votes, especially with Pennsylvania. I think it might hurt her in the end, especially with swing states.
All right. Well, Connor, Donald Trump just walked out of the press conference. So for a little over an hour, about an hour and 10 minutes, he just went out there, no teleprompter, took questions for it. He did like a little 10-minute open, took questions for an hour. Mm-hmm. I would love to see the other side do the same. Hang on just a second. Let me continue with you since we got such a late start. Connor Vassell here from Young Voices on The James Show. And I'd like to hear from you, too, if you got any comments on Decision 2024. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. This is The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there. Welcome back to The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. I found that clip our guest Connor Vassell just referenced in the last segment, the woke comparison between...
we have to stay woke. Like, everybody needs to be woke. and you can talk about if you're the wokest or woker, but just stay more woke than less woke. Yeah.
You know what woke means? It means you're a loser. Everything woke. Everything woke. It's true. Everything woke turns to...
Connor Vassell, which message is going to win in November?
I don't know. Kamala has a very compelling statement there, but I would posit to you, sir, during the first debate between the two of them, we should have a little a drinking game every time she cackles.
Some people find it endearing, though, Connor.
I sure do.
Oh, you do find it endearing? You like her? You like it? You called it a cackle. That doesn't sound very positive.
It's a presidential cackle.
Oh, okay. I get you now. So one of the things that Trump laid out in this press conference that he held today, right before the James Show started, is that he offered up 3 debates, one on Fox and then the other 2 on otherwise friendly platforms, and then 1 vice presidential debate that I think would be on CBS. So it was like a CNN and ABC and a Fox. Does Kamala accept?
I think she better. I mean, it will be a good opportunity for her to really show America, if she's worth her medal and to dispel all those conspiracy theorists and conservative rumors that she's not up for the job. I mean, it's up to her team at the end of the day, but we'll see how that plans out. So
what happens if she doesn't accept the debates?
Well, if she doesn't, they're probably going to run a sort of basement campaign like they did in 2020. That's up in the air how well she'll do in the polls regarding that. But I think her team is realizing that people want to see her speak. People want to see her stand her ground because she's unelected, right? They just gave her the crown, so to speak. And it's entirely anti-democratic. But, hey, no one's going to talk about that. But there better be a debate regardless.
Well, I don't see much of a civil war, or I don't see a whole lot of complaints from my Democrat friends. And I'm not talking about the capital D Democrats you see on TV. I mean, like my friends, my former roommate, my college friends, some family friends, some coworkers. They don't seem to be too upset about having this candidate forced on them like that.
I mean, hey, if it benefits them in the end, most people are not very in tune politically. So whatever they see on TV, if it supports even some of their platform pieces, then they'll just go with it. I mean, she has a D next to her name. That's good enough for them, unfortunately. But that's the society we live in when we don't have, unfortunately, a civic education anymore. But hey, maybe in time, baby steps.
I just feel like there's some people out there that they just pop up their head out of their prairie dog hole long enough to say, can I still have my abortions? Okay, voting Dem.
Oh yeah, there's just a bunch of single issue voters still out there, and each party, each team, they're trying to capitalize on that as best as they can. But these debates, right? These campaigns aren't to persuade the one issue voters who know which party they're going to vote for. These are for those independents. These are for those unsure voters, which in the end will undoubtedly determine this election.
Connor, what odds do you give the election right now? Who do you think is going to win?
I don't know. This whole thing is hurting my head.
Right. Well, I look at the RCP, the Real Clear Politics map, and if you take out all the toss-ups and forget the margin of error, just what do the polls say? Right now, it has Trump ahead 287 to 251 in the Electoral College votes. You think that holds is really what I'm asking.
It varies. It very well. Maybe I just saw a couple polls this morning. Trump is up by 2 or 3 points, depending on the poll. But at the end of the day, we need to have transparent elections. And if it's anything close to what we've had in 2020 in terms of how, concealed and cloak and dagger, those sort of processes were, it's just up in the air. But hopefully we will have a system that actually, allows people to vote fairly, transparently, and we'll have to see. It's just a waiting game at this point.
All right, Connor, I appreciate your time. How do they find you outside of the James Show on WBAP?
Thank you, sir. Anyone can find me on Twitter at Connor_Vasile. That's V as in Victor, ASILE.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, so we had something that sort of interrupted the beginning of the James Show, a Donald Trump press conference. And in that press conference, he made the case several times. I'm not going to go back and play you the audio, but just trust me. He pointed out that, hey, how come Kamala's not doing this? Now, yesterday I was telling you about when J.D. Vance was on the same tarmac at some private airport with Air Force Two, Kamala's plane, and there was a gaggle of press that were waiting. He walked all the way over to them and started talking to them and pointed out that, hey, shouldn't she be doing this? Why isn't she talking to you? What's she scared of? Why is she scared to talk to you and I'm not? Now, I don't know if the rest of America sees that. I know you're aware of it because you listen to WBAP and you're keeping up with things. But that might be a really strong message, and not in the way that I hope. I wish everything got decided on just the policies and just the issues and just where they take a stand. But these little sort of, voting for a prom queen tricks, it matters. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Yeah, and that's another thing that I think I'm going to be watching close is how strong the meme influence is. I thought it was real big in 2020 and less so in 2016. But this year, the meme culture has caught on. And the way I know it's caught on is because people older than me are now sending me memes and enjoying memes and asking for memes. And they're in on it, too. And just like 20 years ago, social media was something that your grandkids did, but grandma didn't do it. Now, fast forward to current times, grandma's been on Facebook for 10 years. She's just as good as anyone else at it. The meme stuff, very influential in a way that combines just quick, tiny little attention spans with actual information. And I think that's been the biggest evolution. And the reason why they're so powerful is because our attention span is down to like 8 seconds now. Like 10 years ago, it was 12 seconds. 20 years ago, it was 20 seconds. It used to be like our grandparents could just read War and Peace in one sitting, I imagine, if the way people talk about it. But a meme, if you only have 3, maybe 5, maybe 8 seconds to get a message across, a meme can do it. And that little clip that Connor brought up that I played for you, Believe it or not, I think that kind of stuff counts. This gets the voters that aren't listening to WBAP, that aren't spending time doing the same amount of research that you were doing.
You know, we have to stay woke. Like, everybody needs to be woke. and you can talk about if you're the wokest or woker, but just stay more woke than less woke. Yeah.
You know what woke means? It means you're a loser. Everything woke. Everything woke. It's true. Everything woke turns to...
Yeah, and sorry for the crude edit. My beep is in the garage this week. It's in the shop, so I had to use the fart box to edit that out. All right, your comments, 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Let's talk about Decision 2024. This is The James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to The James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. I think Garrett and I are both going to go to the event that's happening on Sunday. Now, this isn't like an official WBAP event, but the show that comes on before us, the Dan Bongino Show, the producer, Jim, has a new book called The Dan Bongino Show Survival Guide. And he's going to be at the Angelica? Mockingbird, Sunday at 5 p.m. I think I'm going to go to that. Were you planning on going to that? You probably heard the commercials rolling on WBAP. They've talked about it on the Dan Bongino Show. They were talking about it before my show too today, but I was planning on going. I'm trying to guilt Garrett into going, although I know I can't make him do anything on the weekends. And then we're thinking about the boss man Bruce going too. But I'm interested in this book. I'm interested in meeting Jim. I know a lot of you people are fans out there too. And I'll look for you out there if you're going to go. The Dan Bongino Survival Guide at the Angelica, Sunday, 5 p.m. I've got it in my phone, so it's about as official as it could possibly be. Once it's in your phone, that means something. All right, one of the biggest issues, if not the biggest issue, is illegal immigration. And it's not that it's just a drain on our resources and it creates sort of this underclass, and it's not about the crime. It's not about the property values. It's not about that necessarily. Some people's biggest concern is the likelihood of terrorism that comes out of this. Jeff Brodeur from Rigaku, the analytical devices, he is an expert on chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear issues. And I know this is sort of worst case scenario and possible, but not probable. But let's go ahead and say, what is the worst case scenario out of all these people we've let in the country, millions of people letting in the country? If some of them really are the worst of the worst, what could happen, Jeff?
James, thanks for inviting me on your show. The worst, let me caveat two different scenarios. So the most dangerous scenario is that we have a nefarious actor already inside of the United States, and by a study of the numbers, we probably have a fair number. It is not impossible for them to acquire all the necessary tools for a chemical, biological, or radiological device and employ it inside of our borders. The most dangerous scenario, though, is in terms of the great power competition. You know, the United States and Russia don't exactly see eye to eye nowadays. And it would be in Russia's best interest to accidentally lose a nuclear weapon, offer that up to a third party to employ it at their discretion. So there you have it.
Yeah, that does sound pretty bad. But I mean, do we get a nuclear bomb out of that, or do we get what I've heard of as a dirty bomb out of that?
So both of them are feasible courses of action. A dirty bomb is using explosives to disperse a radioactive isotope, right? And we've got plenty of those in the United States. Some of them are under lock and key. Some of them with armed guards. So it choose a university that has a nuclear engineering degree program. Choose a university that has a nuclear reactor as part of the campus. choose a Department of Energy facility with expended nuclear waste, choose a nuclear power plant that has expended nuclear waste. It doesn't have to be plutonium or uranium, enriched uranium, although the latter is less likely to be an effective radiological dispersal device. But you just need enough to disperse it, preferably a gamma radiating isotope, for it to be harmful to the general public and make a deliberate mess of things wherever it's at.
So the concern, I think, is elevated because if you have a single actor, what's the worst they can do? They can go do like a mass shooting or drive a car through a crowd. But once you have coordination between a handful of guys, that's where you get the next level stuff like another 9/11. Is there any evidence that like a whole cell has snuck in?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. I don't have visibility of that, but I would push back on your lone actor, your lone wolf scenario. One person can do a great amount of damage. I would tell you, and just take a step back, is it likely that a terrorist attack inside of our borders, the traditional attack, right, where the perpetrator declares what they've done, and they give us the why they do it in terms of what they want in response, what their cause is. That is probably less likely between now and the elections because the United States has a past history of electing into our office national security hawks, and we generally want retaliation in quick order. However, my point is that the table is set for an attack just like this without a declaration of responsibility to cause the United States to look internally and point fingers at one another. Let me give you a couple of scenarios. The international community in the Eastern Hemisphere doesn't approve of our support of Ukraine. And so if they can cause us to look internally to the United States and point fingers at one another for the security or lack of security, it'll take our sort of eye off the ball, and that'll translate into less or no support or dwindling support in Ukraine. And let's be frank, most of NATO follows the United States footprint, and if our contributions and our efforts wane, it is likely that theirs will as well. There's another actor out there in the world that would love for us to look away, and that relates to Taiwan's national security. It would not take very long or much effort for the Chinese nationalists to reconnect with Taiwan and make it another province under their sovereign control. North Korea is looking for us to blink as well, to do some military expedition. They've recently rolled out about 250 new launcher systems to their field units. And then Iran has always wanted us to look the other way so they could finally complete the design of a nuclear weapon. So there are a number of organizations, and let's not forget Israel. There are a number of international parties that don't appreciate our support for the war that Israel is engaged in right now in self-defense as a result of October 7th events. So, no, I would push back. It would not be unfathomable or infeasible for them to do so. Now, if we're able to collectively, as a group, synchronize our efforts.
You've got 30 seconds.
If we're able to synchronize our efforts amongst a larger group, it just makes it a larger disaster for the United States to respond to and recover.
All right, Jeff, how do they find you outside of the James Show on WBAP?
I'm on LinkedIn, Dr. Jeffrey M. Broder, putting my hat in for the next Secretary of Homeland Security. And so if Senator Ted Cruz is listening, please look me up. More than qualified.
Jeff Broder. Like the old goalie, huh? Rigaku Analytical Devices is his home. Coming up next, I broke down some of the audio from Trump's press conference right before the show started. You'll hear some highlights in about 5 minutes on The James Show. If you want to jump in the conversation, you get on your phone and call in. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. This is The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to The James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Press conference held by former President Trump, maybe future President Trump today. It started at 1 o'clock our time, right before The James Show started. So I started recording on this thing. And press conferences, you never know how long they're going to go. It could just be they go out there and they give a statement for 5 minutes, they chunk a deuce and walk off. And this was a statement. This is something that... Donald Trump and J.D. Vance don't have the ability to control the narrative like Team Blue does. If Team Blue wants everyone to say weird, they can have everybody on every platform saying the term weird within a week. So Donald Trump and J.D. Vance can go out and complain that Kamala Harris isn't doing any press conferences. They're not answering questions. They're not making themselves available. They're not being transparent. They can go out there and they can make the claim. They can say that this woman has just been thrust upon Democrat voters, which not only do they not get to vote for who their candidate's going to be, they don't even get to hear from them anymore. But this is the next step. This is actually talking the talk. I mean, walking the walk instead of talking the talk. I said it backwards like an idiot. So he goes out there and he gives like a little 10-minute opening statement, takes questions for a little over an hour, and he was almost on a timer. I mean, right after just a little bit over an hour, he walks off. In fact, how long was he there? This whole thing was, it was 53 minutes. That's how long he just stood out there and took questions. So if you do that, then even Kamala Harris voters are going to be like, well, why can't Kamala do it? Because you can't have the excuse, well, that's just not how it works. Or we'll schedule a press conference in 10 days. Or we'll have you'll hear her speak at the convention. Is that next week, the convention sneaking up on us? No, it's easy. You just go out there and you talk to reporters. And like J.D. Vance did yesterday, when there's a gaggle of press reporters on the tarmac and they want to talk to you, they want to talk to Kamala Harris and she doesn't come out. Well, that doesn't necessarily look bad until J.D. Vance comes out of his plane and says, why is she not wanting to talk to y'all? I'll talk to you. Ask away. Let's go. Anybody got some questions? Let's go. And so they don't want to say anything nice about J.D. Vance, and they don't want to say anything bad about Kamala Harris. But the press is made up of individual people trying to do their jobs, and it sure would help. They're trying to get the word out for you. They're trying to spread the message. They're trying to help you win. Can you just come out here and talk to us? We'll let you say weird over and over and over and never push back. We're not going to fact check you. We're not going to interrupt you. We're not going to correct you. We're not going to ask you about the policies that hurt you. We're only here to help. And still, she won't talk to a fawning press that just wants to shine her shoes. She still won't talk to him. So President Trump comes out there and look, this isn't even what Kamala would face. When Trump gets out there, he's asked, let's see, how has your campaign recalibrated since Walz was picked? What's your response to Kamala getting bigger crowds than you're getting? What's your response to abortion and people who are concerned that you would take away women's right to choose? Like, he's asked tough questions from the oppositional side and not focusing on the issues that help him. They didn't go out there and say, hey, what do you think about tampons in the boys' room? They didn't go out there and say, hey, what do you think about Tim Walz's position where he has a bunch of kids dressed up like the pride flag, walking in a LGBT parade with his name on it, Walz. Are you comfortable with that? You comfortable with teaching 7-year-olds to identify themselves by what they do with their undercarriage? No, they didn't ask him about that. They're trying to poke holes in him. And still he's out there for an hour. We have time to do some of this. Like when I was saying, hey, how have you recalibrated? How have you changed your campaign and recalibrated now that Walz is the candidate? I mean, what a loaded question to ask. Who says we need to recalibrate? Who says we have a problem with that? Who says, oh, no, we're off on our heels? That's the assumption with the question. Oh, you got you caught off guard. Now you're going to have to change because they're doing so good and he's caught on so well and he's so popular and everyone's so happy and there's so much excitement. You got to do something about it. Really? That's the question?
I
Yes.
haven't recalibrated strategy at all. It's the same policies, open borders, weak on crime. I think she's worse than Biden because he got forced into the position. She was there long before. She destroyed San Francisco. She destroyed California as the AG. But as the DA, she destroyed San Francisco.
All right, so what you hear here is Trump that is trying to stay on the issues, trying not to bring up race and sex, trying not to bring in ad hominem attacks like she's got an annoying cackle or she had an affair with Willie Brown back in the day or she was Montel Williams' side piece. And that's the exact stuff he needs to stay away from. Now, they are not going to give Donald Trump any favors. Next question. Hey, how come you're doing so bad with black voters?
Well, it changes around a little bit. I'm getting other voters. Perhaps, I was doing very well with black voters, and I still am. I seem to be doing very well with black males. This is according to polls, as you know. It's possible that I won't do as well with black women, but I do seem to be doing very well with other segments, extremely well with Hispanic.
See, now this stinks because he doesn't want to bring up race. He didn't bring up race in his opening statement. He didn't bring up race when he was talking about Kamala. They are asking him about race, and he's got to be super careful here because what they're going to do, and by they, I mean every news outlet but us and Fox News, is they're going to find the 15 seconds that whether you take it out of context or not, that makes him look the worst. Find the stuff where he's not talking about policy, where he's not talking about the issues. He's not talking about the economy. He's not talking about crime. He's not talking about immigration. He's talking about this frivolous, petty race, gender stuff. And did he thread that needle? Maybe. I do like it when he beats up on the media a little bit because I feel like they deserve it. Then when he was asked about crowd size, hey, how you feel about Kamala getting a bigger crowd than you in the same stadium?
Oh, give me a break. Listen, I had 107,000 people in New Jersey. You didn't report it. I'm so glad you asked. What did she have yesterday? 2,000 people? If I ever had 2,000 people, you'd say my campaign is finished. It's so dishonest, the press. And here's a great example. I had in Michigan recently 25,000 people, and 25,000 people we just couldn't get them in. We had in Harrisburg 25,000 people.
Right, you get what's going on here. Hey, how come Kamala's got voters so excited? How come Kamala's doing so much better with black voters? How come Kamala's getting so much bigger crowds? Now, even with those headwinds, he's willing to go out there and just do this for an hour. Why can't Kamala? Will the voters see it? 800-288-9227. This is The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, all you beautiful Texans. Welcome back to The James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Yeah, good to see you too. The Decision 2024 rolls along. Donald Trump held a press conference right before the show started. I was playing you some audio from that. Right now, you have Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. They are holding a rally in front of some UAW workers, and then some bald guy who's like the president of the local chapter came out, so they cut away from it. And we're trying to figure out who's going to win this thing. What do you think? 800-288-9227. Let's ask my next guest. Dr. Cal Jilson's back on from SMU. The Tim Walz pick. I know a lot of people listening right now don't agree with him on policy positions, but if you were a Kamala voter and you already liked her, I think he matches pretty well with her.
Yeah, I think the intention is for them to be able to work closely together. So they have to share a lot of opinions, but there's also an attempt to balance the ticket with her sort of San Francisco liberal, at least that's the way she's often characterized, with a more Midwestern governor of Minnesota kind of Midwest dad vibe. He's got a very interesting 20-year background in elected politics in which he was a moderate member of the U.S. House of Representatives for a dozen years and then worked with a Republican legislature in his first couple of years, got a Democrat legislature, and was much more progressive in the policies he passed in his later in his term as governor. So he's got a long history, and it's one that has elements of sort of a moderate approach and elements of a more progressive approach.
Is there any issues on which they disagree?
If there are, Walz is going to be quiet about them. The whole idea behind selecting a running mate is to have someone who can, you're splitting up the posse, going in two different directions. You're supposed to be singing from the same hymn book. And if you have a vice presidential nominee who has opinions on significant issues that differ from the presidential candidate, that vice president will have met with the presidential candidate, as Walz did, and, he will have pledged fealty. Same way Vance did to Trump, Walz did to Kamala Harris. So you don't expect to see a lot of daylight between them.
Trump offered 3 debates to Kamala Harris. Does she accept? Because one of them, the first one, would be Fox News.
Yeah. It's very interesting. The calculation that a politician makes on debates, there is an assumption that the public deserves a debater, more than one debate. 3 is not an unusual number. But the politician proposing generally feels like they need them, and the politician considering whether to agree is usually the politician that doesn't quite so much feel like they need them. And so the polling has shifted over the last couple of weeks from Trump up 3 or 4 to Harris up 0.5. You just had in your run up to this segment, but the most recent polls, last 2 or 3 days, have Harris up 1, 2, 3, and there are a number of states, including Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada, that have been shifted toward Harris. Not lean Democrat, but from lean Republican back into toss-up, particularly Georgia. And the blue wall states of the upper Midwest seem to be firming up for Harris. So today, Harris has the advantage in the polling, but the Electoral College tends to lean a little more Republican than the polling does. That's why Bush won in 2000 and Trump won in 2016, even though they lost the popular vote. So it's very close. I think there'll be a debate, whether there'll be 3 or not, and whether the terms as Trump offered them will be accepted. I don't know. I would expect to see a debate. I don't know that we'll see 3.
So is there a worry that Walz could be too liberal? He signed a statewide gender-affirming care law in Minnesota, which protects even kids' rights to get gender-affirming gender surgeries and hormone therapies and whatnot. Is that going to hurt him?
Oh, it could. It could. Politics is all thrust and counter thrust. So the charge is made. What do you do to rebut it? So, the one that I've been thinking about is the charge from J.D. Vance that there's a stolen valor issue with the way Tim Walz has described his military service of 24 years in the National Guard. That's a charge that has been made. What do you say to rebut it? Charge on gender-affirming care, on gun issues, on access to abortion services. All of these things can be characterized by Republicans, which means the Democrats then have to rebut it. They have to have not so much an explanation as a short, pithy, bumper sticker rejoinder that will blunt the force of any charge that's made. So, charges are a dime a dozen. The ones that stick are the ones that either can't be rebutted for some reason or that the candidate is just not quick enough on their feet to rebut. You think of this Chris LaCivita, who's one of the senior campaign officials of the Trump campaign, eviscerating John Kerry, 15, 20 years ago now, with this idea of swift boat veterans challenging his receipt of Purple Hearts and saying that he didn't deserve them. And Kerry never got on top of that charge, and it did hurt him. So the question is always, you can think tennis, serve and volley. What do you have to say in rebuttal?
You did all your back to school shopping yet, Cal?
Well, my back to school shopping is just finding my hat the day it's going to start.
All right, there he is, Cal Jillson from SMU. Thanks for being on the James Show again on WBAP.
All right, buddy.
All right, what do you think? Look, whether you agree with him or not, you got to admit he's a pretty good match for Kamala Harris, ideologically speaking. You know, the best question I asked Cal, like, do they deviate? Do they disagree on any big policies? And so far, no. And so I think, isn't that kind of what you want? 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. We'll continue discussing Decision 2024 next on The James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Your thoughts on Decision 2024. We've now had a few days to digest who this Tim Walz guy is. And look, to be fair, if you're on Team Blue, this guy's right up your alley. I don't know what faction of Team Blue you're on. Most of the Team Blue people in my personal orbit do not believe men can have babies, or you should be putting tampons in the boys' room. So I would think that maybe this guy's a little too lefty for some of my Democrat friends, but that's what Kamala believes. So I think he's probably a pretty good pick for her. And generally speaking, that's where Team Blue is these days. What do you think? 800-288-9227. Let's ask Eric in College Station. You're on WBAP. What do you think, Eric?
I think he's a perfect fit for Kamala. I mean, it's pretty much socialism versus capitalism at this point. It's exactly what Trump would want as far as an opponent, because it's clear that this guy's not a moderate, and neither is Kamala, of course, even though they tried to erase her record as a senator. But that's okay. We know. We have the receipts, and, these people are way, way far left. I mean, it really is. They're trying to usher in socialism, and if you're Trump, it's an easy opponent, right?
You would think, like at least on policy positions, it's an easy opponent. But, this one isn't in the first stages of dementia and just bumping out into walls and whatnot. And when you have the entire media on your side, I don't think you ever have an easy election.
Well, that is true. I mean, look, Trump is, going out in front of the media. He's answering questions. Is Kamala doing the same thing? Are they going to hide the ball just like they did in 2020 with Biden? I mean, just her answering questions and thinking on her feet will illustrate to everyone that she doesn't have the intellectual capacity to actually do this, let alone, Biden, who obviously is, senile. But this Walz character, it's actually surprising that they didn't go with Shapiro. Shapiro would have made a lot of sense.
Now, why do you say that? Why is Shapiro over Walz?
Because Shapiro is actually moderate, and he's Jewish. And look at what's happened in the Democratic Party, the fracturing going on with the Palestine versus Israel, all this kind of stuff. You would soothe that pretty dire situation that they're going through with Shapiro, and you wonder, was that the reason why they didn't choose him? It just doesn't make any sense. Plus, he's from Pennsylvania. That's a battleground state. Minnesota, that's a gimme. Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, isn't Kamala's husband, isn't he Jewish?
He is. But look at what's going on in the Democratic Party right now. I mean...
No, I agree. I that was more of a piece of trivia than a rebuttal. I agree with everything you said there, Eric. At least that last part. Here, let me give you the one thing I disagree with is, and this is what I find so disappointing about the Republican Party. Yes, the Democrats are bad. Republicans are only slightly worse, though. When you say this is capitalism versus socialism, this is continued the socialism we have versus piling on more socialism. Because when you look at the federal budget, 70% of it, seven out of every $10 are going to a social program. And I don't mean like employees. I mean, we're taking $1 away from Eric in College Station and we're giving it to someone who did not earn it. So when you add it up, when you add the Social Security, the Medicare, the Medicaid, all the social unemployment, disability, all the social programs, that's what's drowning us all. And until someone talks about significantly repealing that, then from my point of view, it is just the socialism we have now calcified or piling on even more socialism. There's not a capitalist on the ticket.
Oh, well, there was. Vivek was that guy. It's unfortunate that kind of talk, though it's tough talk, it's tough love for exactly that. Look, we have to take a look at how much we're spending. Milton Friedman said it best. Why are we having inflation? Well, because the government is spending more than they're taking in. That's it. That is it. There is nothing else to look at that. So that's why you have to really focus in on candidates like Vivek, who are talking about abolishing the IRS. They're talking about instituting real, actual change that's dire and necessary, because you're absolutely right. We're just jettisoning off of a cliff at this point. It just depends. Do you want a parachute with an S on it or a C? But until we actually get to that, you're right, the heart of it, and that is repealing these massive bloated bureaucracies and getting the power back to the people. So support those kind of guys.
Yeah. Well, let's see how far I get if I run for office saying I want to repeal Social Security, I want to repeal welfare, I want to repeal Medicare and Medicaid and unemployment and disability. I don't think I'd win anything, but that's what I believe in. That's what makes it really hard to be a talk show host too. Thank you for your call, Eric. Let's go to Will in Cleburne. You're next up on WBAP. What do you think about the election situation, Will?
Yeah, thanks for taking my call. I have to think that the Democrats and the deep state have got this thing in the bag, and they don't even need to pretend to be moderate. There's enough election manipulation that is happening that these guys know something that we don't and know they've got this in the bag. This type of ticket should not be polling as well as it is unless they're manipulating something. The whole thing is a total manipulation. I welcome your thoughts on that.
Define manipulation. Like, you think the polls aren't real, or the media coverage isn't real? Because if the media is obviously lying, but are they fudging the polls, or are people being duped and answering this honestly?
I think it's a little column A and a little column B. I think that the polls are totally manipulated. I don't have a lot of confidence that whenever I go and I vote in November, that it's even going to matter, because they're going to fudge the numbers where they need to fudge them to get their candidate in. And this trend happened as soon as Hillary Clinton lost to Trump in 2016. The deep state decided we're going to take dramatic measures into our own hands to ensure this type of thing never happens again. And I don't want to think that about my country, that our election system is so corrupt, but something is going on, that a ticket like Harris and this governor are even plausibly electable.
Well, listen,
it doesn't make any sense.
Don't feel bad. You don't sound like a conspiracy theorist to anybody out there. What just happened in Venezuela 2 weeks ago? The socialists came in and they stopped the vote counting in the middle of the night. They kicked out all the election observers, turned off the lights. When they turned the lights back on, a whole lot of new ballots had been found, and they're all in one direction. And so the big government socialist guy wins the election. Same thing that happened here.
Absolutely. Yeah, we are definitely living in the same type of atmosphere, I fear, that Venezuela is.
Oh, yeah. Not as far down the socialist rabbit hole, but we've already gone down a couple flights of stairs. That's for sure. Great call, Will in Cleburne. If you want to be next, 800-288-9227. Coming up next, I'm going to talk to the mayor of Fairview, Texas. Maybe you've heard about the proposal for a gigantic Mormon temple out in a small neighborhood that is fighting against it, or some of them are. You'll hear about it in about 10 minutes on The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. So the decision 2024 moves right along, and the thing that was being discussed a little bit before the James Show started, and then definitely during the James Show as I'm checking on the breaks, is this setup for debates. Now, the debates, there were supposed to be 3 that the Presidential Commission on Debate, they host every year. And they were agreed upon by Joe Biden and Donald Trump way back when Joe Biden and Donald Trump were not even the presumed nominees yet. But the extra debate that we saw in June was something that just came out of sort of the political equivalent of a double dog dare where when Joe Biden, after the Robert Hur investigation, released its results in February, where they said we can't convict him because he's just mentally too deficient and probably be sympathetic to a jury and all that good stuff. And so that's when the Overton window opened up where we could even talk about Joe Biden's mental decline. And so these the two debates that were supposed to be before the official ones were made in response to that new narrative that had opened up. Well, the first debate did its job. The whole point of the debate was, well, you think I'm mentally incompetent? I'll show you. I'll have a debate. And Trump over there said, sure, go ahead, have a debate. It's just going to show that you're mentally incompetent. Well, we found out who was right and who was wrong on that one. And so the first debate did its job. Now, that second debate that they had agreed to, what's the point of that now? It was another debate that was supposed to be on all the terms that Joe Biden himself and his campaign had specifically negotiated away from the Presidential Commission on Debates. This was its own little private gentleman's deal and a handshake between those two campaigns. Now, when Biden steps down and Kamala becomes the presumptive nominee, even though now I think it's official, they had the Zoom call, the roll call to make her the party choice now at this point. I guess she was assuming that other debate that was unfulfilled from the two that were made from the double dog dare was still on the table. And she wants that one to be on the table because that had all the settings. That has to be in this platform that hates Donald Trump. And it has to be with these 8 different rule variations that are all stacked against Donald Trump. You know, we can mute your microphones. There's not going to be a live audience. There's not going to be commercial breaks. Can't bring in notes, all that good stuff. So I think Donald Trump has jettisoned that and put something else on the table today. And this was in a press conference that was happening right before the show started, where he was laying out, okay, I'm willing to do these 3 debates, one at Fox News and then the other 2 at a Kamala favored platform. And then the VPs are going to have one debate on a Kamala favored platform. So just one would be Fox News. Now, I haven't heard if she's actually accepted that setup. I would be interested to see if she does, because does she really need to? I don't know. But here's just a little taste.
With all of that being said, I think it's very important to have debates. And we've agreed with Fox on a date of September 4th. We've agreed with NBC, fairly full agreement, subject to them, on September 10th. And we've agreed with ABC on September 25th. So we have those 3 dates, and those networks, they're very anxiously awaiting that date and those dates. So we have September 4th, September 10th, and September 25th.
All right. So if should she choose to accept, that's our next assignment. That's the next big event coming up. And it really sounds like way far in the future. September 4th, 2024, we'll have flying cars by then. No, that's less than a month away. And look, these debates, we're going to do the bingo cards. We're probably going to post up in a bar or some other event space somewhere. And this is going to be a party, because for the first time in your life, you saw a presidential debate that actually had an effect, like not an effect on whether or not you get in a vote on November. It got a guy kicked out of the race. The guy did so bad he had to be replaced. And I don't know if you've digested this yet, but we don't know if Kamala's going to do much better. You know, Kamala is in a very precarious spot. Yeah, she's the nominee now. But you hear grumblings from your Democrat friends. You hear me play grumblings from some people who will accidentally slip and admit it on TV. It kind of stinks to be told you're going to vote for this candidate that the party just selected for you. And you could kind of, okay, it's not Joe Biden and it's his running mate. And so naturally speaking, this is the backup plan to the A team here. This is the B team. But they didn't give you a candidate to go with her. The VP pick wasn't someone that you voted on either. Just picked out of thin air. The people that went through the primary process in either 2016 or 2020, none of them were even considered for a second except for Pete Buttigieg for that VP spot. So no, this is a debate where you have a candidate who's solid. No one ever doubted that Trump was going to be the nominee, versus a candidate who will have only been the nominee in earnest for about a month and no one's voted for her. So, I mean, look, if this goes bad enough, you got to start preparing yourself for what if they try the swap again? I mean, and why not? If you're already going to lose the election, might as well try something else instead of just walk right off a cliff. So that's your political updates. But listen, before you go, I want to remind you, find the James Show podcast wherever you're already listening to podcasts. Next time you're killing some time on a road trip or mowing the lawn or whatever, look for the James Show, James Parker or James Show or WBAP James. It pops up. But also find me on whatever you're on: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Rumble, all that. I try and be in as many places as possible. Every click, every follow, every share, every subscribe, every like, every comment helps tremendously. And please, if you haven't done it already, download the WBAP app. It's absolutely free. It doesn't cost you anything. And I would be super grateful. Stay put. Coming up next, the great one, Mark Levin. I'm James Parker. This has been The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.